What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. A huge thank you to the support from everyone, and don't forget you can come get involved with us in Discord as well. Wholesome bunch in there. I come get involved as well and chat to you guys in the evening, so please come join us. It'd be great to see you. I like to think of us as a community-based channel, so it's always great to see this interaction between us, so yeah, come get involved. And with that being said, let's just crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Today we're going to be covering all stories with updates, and our first story is from Throwaway Takeout. Am I the arsehole for eating takeout while my stepdad had a heart attack? Last night I got off work late, so I ordered food. I'm staying with my mum and stepdad for a few months. I never knew him that well, as I grew up with my bio dad from age 6 when my parents split. I visited my mum every other summer and we've always been on friendly terms, but never super close until I moved to their city for work. I'm staying until I can find a place to rent myself. Shortly before my takeout arrived, my stepdad collapsed. My mum called me for help and of course I helped. We called an ambulance and gave him first aid together until the paramedics took over. They got a pulse and transferred him to the ambulance. They lost the pulse in the ambulance and couldn't take him to hospital until they got it back. The woman explained this to us before shutting the doors. Around this point my takeout arrived. I paid and explained what was happening, as the delivery guy was obviously kind of freaked out by the ambulance outside where he was dropping off food. I took the food inside and came back out to check on my mum. She was waiting outside the ambulance and wasn't allowed in while they were working on my stepdad. I stayed with her for about 5 minutes and then suggested we go wait inside as it was cold. She said no, she'd wait outside. I said to call me if she needed me and went inside. I had already ordered food. It was there and going cold. I hadn't eaten in hours, so I decided to eat while I waited. Mum came inside and found me eating and told me it was selfish to be eating when a family member was dying. I stopped eating as it was clearly upsetting her. Stepdad is alive today. He had a heart attack, but his chances look good. I'm genuinely glad he's okay. This morning Mum told me she can't believe how cold and callous I am, and she thinks I hate her and my stepdad and blame them for my parents' divorce. I don't hate either. I didn't think me eating takeout while we waited was a cold thing, but it seemed to have really upset her. I don't care about the divorce anymore either. For context, the whole incident from calling the ambulance to the ambulance leaving took an hour and 15 minutes. Food arrived halfway through all this and there was nothing I could have done to help. Edit, so I don't have to keep making the same point. I waited outside with her for 30 minutes. Food arrived, I took it inside and immediately went back outside. The adrenaline had worn off by then and I noticed it was cold, so I asked if she wanted to go inside after 5 minutes. She said no. I then went inside after waiting with her for 35 minutes total. There was nothing we could do but wait, and she had been standing away from me when we were waiting. I asked her a few times if she was okay or needed anything. She said no. She usually deals with stress by being alone and usually asks for some space. She is not upset I didn't continue to wait with her, and that's not what I'm asking about. She was upset that I was able to eat food whilst this was going on. I know her, and the hints I was getting from her body language was that I wasn't helping by hovering around her anyway. Whilst I'm happy my stepdad is alive and have no harsh feelings to him, I don't know him that well. I was concerned for him, but I don't know him well enough to truly panic. I saw him every other year for a few weeks of my life, and I've known him this time for a few months. Nice guy, glad he's okay, but I can't force myself to love him like family. When I went inside I was cold, tired from a 12-hour shift and performing CPR, and I hadn't eaten in a few hours. I was on autopilot as the adrenaline had worn off. Perhaps it was insensitive of me, but I thought I had done all I could at that point. I also did all I could in terms of CPR, talking to paramedics and offering her my support verbally. Someone suggested I should have driven her to hospital. We were waiting outside the ambulance and I don't drive. I'm also 18 and here on an apprenticeship program, so there are limits to what I can offer to do for her practically. My apprenticeship involves manual work, which is doubly exhausting. Right now we're on lockdown, so I'm the only one working in our household, and I think she forgets how tiring shift work is, as she hasn't done it for months. We're also in the UK, and I think Americans have some strange ideas about what you do in a crisis. She would have killed me if I started calling all her friends to come over mid-heart attack. We also deal with things in a bit more of a repressed way, so we don't do the whole sobbing and hugging thing Americans seem to think should be going on. Do Americans really think that should be going on? That'd be interesting, because I know a fair few of you are Americans, and how would you deal with that in that sort of what was going on? And I remember when my aunt passed away, God, whenever I make a story, it's always one of my relatives passing away, isn't it? But when one of my relatives passed away, my aunt, and this was about 2 years ago, it was shortly after my mum passed away, and I was the only one at her bedside when she had some sort of seizure. I mean, she did have pancreatic cancer, and she was in palliative care. And we knew nothing apart from she wanted the whole family to come around her bedside, and we didn't know why. And apparently the nurses didn't even know. But I got there, I was the first one there. I was really reluctant because I didn't know what I was expecting because she was on like morphine and stuff. But it was a really wholesome conversation we had. And then she said, "Mark, can you call for a nurse?" And I sort of ran out and I shouted for a nurse, and one came in. And by the time I came back, she was just there on the bed having a seizure. And you know, all these medical professionals gathered around, and I was just sort of stood there with tears flooding out my face, not knowing what the hell to do at this moment. But there was nothing that could be done, apparently, and that was sort of the end. And then all the family came around the corner, all smiling and stuff, looking forward to seeing, you know, their relative. And then I had to say, she's taking her last breaths, so you best go in there. And it's just an awful time. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, straight after that, I went straight to the vending machine and got myself a Mars bar. And I thought, is this the right thing that I should be doing right now? I mean, it actually did help. The sugar really helped me out, but yeah, it was a weird time. And so I can sort of understand, you know, just stepping back and still wanting to eat. And I'm not sure what I just said was relevant at all to the story, but it felt relevant at the time. And I get what OP was doing. It's like, it's a total logical thing to do, to go and grab some food. But at the same time, you can see from looking from the outside that it might look a bit heartless in some ways. If someone like the mum coming back in and seeing her just sat there stuffing your face with food. But at the same time, I totally get where they're coming from. So I'm going to say not the arsehole in this situation. But let's have a look. A couple of comments, not too many because this is going on for a while. And then we'll go to the update. KM89 says, no one's an arsehole here, I think. This is a tough one because everyone's kind of wrong and nobody is at the same time. Your actions were kind of uncaring, sure, but you're not required to care. She's taken it out on you, but then she was just confronted with the idea that you'd rather eat than be there to support her, but then you're really not required to if you don't care. It's weird, but I think maybe the way you were eating might decide this. You sat down to a nice meal while your father was dying in the background. Sure, you're the arsehole. If you scarfed some food while you could eat because you hadn't eaten in hours and was trying to stay out of the way, not the arsehole. Everyone handles emergencies differently, and staying out of the way was at least better than getting in it. And Lucy Van Pelt says, no one's an arsehole here. Your mother was/is stressing. You were not stressing, but even if you were, some people stress eat, others lash out. Now we head to the update post. Thankfully, we're expecting my stepdad to make a full recovery. He was able to call me from hospital. We've never really had a deep conversation, or even a very long one, so it was a little awkward, but he thanked me for helping, and we've developed mutual respect for each other. I'm genuinely glad he's okay, and he seems to appreciate what I did. It was a pretty emotional chat, and I'm glad we spoke. I started having some distressing dreams about the incident, spoke with my doctor, who said it's normal as it was a traumatic thing to witness. Said I should go back if it doesn't improve, but thankfully it seems to be getting better in the last few days. I've cleared up the big debate over my mum. We've talked a lot. She confirmed she wasn't upset that I went inside. She actually wanted me to go away so she could be alone with her thoughts for a bit. She only came inside as she thought I was upset and trying to hide it by going inside. She said she realised she hadn't checked up on me throughout the wait and felt guilty when she realised. When she came inside and saw she read the situation wrong, she was just overwhelmed. She said in that moment she felt a lot of guilt for not trying to foster a better relationship between me and my stepdad. It hit her that we really weren't close, and she was upset at the thought that it might be too late to fix that. When she feels guilty or in the wrong, she explains she tends to lash out as a defense mechanism, which is something I didn't really know about her, but it explains a lot. She also explained that my stepdad had never wanted kids, but didn't have a problem with me. He just felt awkward as they both assumed I resented them for essentially breaking up my family, as I knew it. I've reassured my mum it doesn't bother me and there is no resentment. Hopefully we can all be a bit less awkward with each other. I acknowledge that I should have waited to eat now. I can see how it looked insensitive, but fortunately no one is upset and my stepdad found it funny when I mentioned it. He said he probably would have done the same. Asked what I ordered. He said it was good scran, so I think no one is too upset. This incident has put things into perspective and hopefully I can develop a better relationship with my stepdad when he's well enough. I think that would mean a lot to my mum, and he seems like a sound bloke. Also to work on better communication with my mum. Thanks to those who reassured me in the comments and privately, really helped me process things once the shock started wearing off. And I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Now, have you guys ever been in a similar situation to this and done some weird stuff? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story is from Am I the Arsehole Crybaby? Am I the arsehole for taking the attention away from the bride at a wedding? I suffer from panic disorder, which means I tend to suffer panic attacks on a regular basis. They're usually triggered by external stimuli, especially if it's related to my CPTSD, but they can also happen seemingly out of nowhere. I was abused repeatedly as a child and I'm still dealing with the fallout in adulthood. Fast forward to last weekend, my girlfriend's cousin, let's call her Susan, was getting married and invited me to come to the wedding as a +1. It was a very small, intimate ceremony, but relatively safe given COVID restrictions. I'd already been feeling on the edge earlier that morning after an argument with my dad, but decided to come anyway, thinking being with my girlfriend's family would help get my mind off things. Sadly, this on-edge feeling didn't go away. I tried to hold in my anxiety to keep the peace, but it wasn't working. My girlfriend tried calming me down, holding my hand and assuring me everything was okay. After a few minutes, I got up during the vows and headed for the lobby to try and calm down. My girlfriend got up with me. A few people stared at us as we left. After a while, I did feel better and some relative asked me if I was alright. It felt nice knowing these total strangers weren't going to judge me for a mental health crisis that I couldn't control. Later that day, I was at my girlfriend's apartment. While she was in the bathroom, her phone went off, revealing a string of texts from Susan. I didn't snoop through her phone. Texts on iPhone appear briefly for a few seconds while on sleep mode. Due to the post-length rules, I'll give a brief summary. Susan thanked my girlfriend for coming to her wedding, but added that it was very rude to just get up and leave in the middle of the ceremony. Susan said she worked her butt off to make the wedding happen in spite of COVID. My girlfriend and I took attention away from her, and that I should have stayed home. I later told my girlfriend about the text and she apologised profusely for Susan's behaviour. She said she never remembered her cousin acting like this and maybe she was just caught up in the heat of the wedding. I'm sure that's true, but Susan's not the first person bothered by my panic attacks and she won't be the last. Maybe I should have stayed home. I was already feeling panicky to begin with, but I left anyway because I love being around my girlfriend and her family. Maybe it was selfish of me to do this on such a special occasion as a wedding. Am I the arsehole? Edit, I don't think I made a big scene or anything. I had some staggered breathing, tremors and felt lightheaded. There are about 12 to 15 people in the audience. Edit 2, I now see I'm the arsehole here, but thanks for also being understanding of my disorder. I hope Susan will accept my apology. I never meant to ruin the wedding, but I shouldn't have used it as a way to make myself feel better. I should have stayed home and found someone else to talk through my panic attack. I just thought my girlfriend would have been the best person at that moment. Now the comments all seem to be like, you're the arsehole. So we'll start off with Wanna Die saying, gentle, you're the arsehole. Look, I empathise as I have an anxiety disorder and depression. But just because we can't help that, we have them, doesn't mean we suddenly don't have to hold ourselves accountable for our actions and the way this affects folks regardless. It explains our behaviour but it doesn't excuse it. You were already feeling panicky and given that you knew a breakdown was coming, it is a little bit selfish to have gone to someone's wedding expecting their family to make you feel better. Honestly, Susan's reaction was valid. It's understandable to be hurt in her position, like going to one of her most emotional milestones, not to be there to support her, but to use it as a distraction is a little, self-centered. At the end of the day, you do owe her an apology. Kez Star says, a very, very gentle you're the arsehole. As someone who suffers from autism and anxiety, it's my responsibility to make sure my issues don't affect others negatively. If I know I'm having a bad day, it's up to me to make sure I either stay home or put plans in place to make sure things still run smoothly. The world doesn't revolve around my condition, and I shouldn't expect it to. Liar's Little Pretty says, well, you know the feelings that are about to bring on a panic attack, and it seems you should start listening to them and plan accordingly. It was a bit rude to leave during that moment and then come back like everything was fine without apologising for the disruption. So slight, you're the arsehole. And I'm not totally sure, well, I've never been in this position where I've had a panic attack, so I don't know how it builds up to that point and how much you know. But looking from the outside, and if it was my wedding, if I was up the front there and someone got up because, you know, they was on the verge of having a panic attack, I'm not sure I could call someone an arsehole for that. Sure, they may have known earlier in the day that something was coming on, but they also wanted to attend this wedding to be with their girlfriend, and in some ways it just doesn't feel right to me to call someone an arsehole for that. But, you know, these people in the comments are saying, you know, they suffer from some of these things as well. So I'm not arguing with these people, but I'm just saying, for me personally, if I was stood at the front and I was getting married and someone had to leave because of that, I don't think I would be offended by it. But let's have a look at the update to see what that says. Thank you for your feedback. The final consensus was that I was the arsehole, but I think that the many not the arseholes I received has some good points too. I shouldn't have gone to the wedding when I was about to have a panic attack, but as long as I was there, leaving before I could really make a scene was the best I could do at the moment, albeit poorly timed. I left Susan both a text and a voicemail apologising for taking the attention away from her. I had no malicious intent and was simply trying to solve a mental health crisis in what I thought was the best option, being with my girlfriend rather than being by myself. Nevertheless, I shouldn't have used a wedding to make myself feel better. Later that night, Susan texted me saying she accepted my apology and that she'd be off her phone for a while for her honeymoon. I was happy that Susan forgave me, but for a while my mind went into a dark place about this whole ordeal with panic attacks. I'd spent a lifetime being treated like there was something wrong with me, whether from my abusive father or others who didn't know or care enough to act with my best interests at heart. My own mum tried to get rid of me as a baby before giving my dad full custody. I wish I could just disappear. One psych eval and several counselling sessions later, I'm on more of a stable path mentally than a few weeks ago. I was given stronger meds that I could take right before I have another panic attack. I also want to get some sort of support animal to have in my apartment. I'm not going to let my disorder keep me from living my life, but I'll probably stay away from larger social functions until I'm comfortable enough to do so again. I look forward to a nice Thanksgiving with my girlfriend's family this week. Thank you again for helping me put my situation into perspective. I may have been the arsehole at the wedding, but I'll try to be more mindful of future social gatherings from now on. And this is what I sort of love about the update posts, is that we get to find out what they're doing to better themselves in the future. And you know, as I posted in a recent meme, progress is progress. Every little step forward is progress, and do not forget that. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments below. And our next story is from Revolutionary Mix. Am I the arsehole for not wanting to use my inheritance on my kids? I got pregnant right out of high school. I was lucky that the dad didn't run off and wanted to be in the child's life. He went to college while I stayed and worked at an office job. We continued to date throughout the whole thing and got married when he graduated from college. It took a while, but with our combined incomes we can live a decent life. Middle class. I have 2 other children with him. All of the kids are adults now, and 2 are in college while the other graduated. Each kid had a college fund of about $50,000. Well, my father died due to the pandemic, and in the will I got a lot of money and property. If I sold the properties, I would have enough to retire right now. I talked to my husband about it and we decided to sell the properties. With the combined money, we're going to put 3/4 of it into our retirement fund and use the rest to explore the world and fund money. I've never left the USA before and it's been a dream to see the world for such a long time. We're making plans to keep working until 2023 and then go explore the world for a whole year. We told our kids the plan and they were upset that we weren't using the money to pay for their college debt. Every kid has debt since the $50,000 didn't cover everything, so they had to take out loans. It turned into an argument and I put my foot down and said no, that I am finally going to do what I want, that I sacrificed enough and I'm not giving up this dream again. My kids aren't happy, but my husband and I are. I just wanted an outsider's perspective if I'm being an arse. Edits, answer some questions. The kids are 26, 22 and 21 and I'm 44. The reason the inheritance was so large was that my dad died unexpectedly and I basically got the rest of his retirement fund / properties. He was retired for 7 years. My family only passes the inheritance down to their children and not grandchildren. Tradition. You know, I'm with you that you gave them a good chunk of money. You gave them 50k each, man. That's a good amount of money that they're extremely lucky to have, especially in this current climate too. So that I don't think they can argue with that, and that you want to go and explore it and do your own thing as well. I think that's amazing and you should absolutely do that. But where it would make you slightly arsehole in this post is where you said this particular line and you said you sacrificed enough for them. But you brought them into this world. That was your choice. And don't get me wrong, what the kids are doing is absolutely shameful. They shouldn't be pressuring you into giving that money over and all that kind of thing. But I just hate it when people say like, as soon as a child's turned 18, you know, I've sacrificed enough now, you're on your own. And yes, they do have to learn their own way and all this kind of thing, but I just don't like the mentality of, you know, I'm done with you now. You're old enough to deal with it, so I'm totally done with you. I think personally, if I had children, I'd try to do my best for them throughout their whole lives, as much as I can, you know. But that might be just a me thing, and I might be totally wrong to even consider that. I might be just raising some hypothetically entitled little turds right there. But I say not the arsehole in this story, and let's have a look at the update post. Thank you to everyone that responded to the original post. So we got in contact with our financial advisor and he looked over everything. It seems like everything is good and our original plan is going to work. My husband and I also decided to look into renting out properties, but we were advised against it since both properties' locations are awful. One is my dad's old house and another is a few acres of land that's just kind of there. I have no idea where it came from. We're going to get a second opinion on that, but for right now, the original plan is happening. Our kids confronted us a few days ago when they heard that we're going through with the plan. It boiled down to us telling them that they choose which college to go to and they didn't need to go to a private college. Also, they chose not to work during their college years, that they knew how much debt they would be in and that we're not paying for their choices when they understood what they were doing. It was a bit harsh, but it seemed to get through to them and peace is restored in the family. My youngest daughter, still in college, is actually looking to getting a job on campus. My husband and I are thinking of paying to take the kids on a week or two vacations before or during our trip, so a family vacation. My husband and I are making a list of places we have to visit when we travel the world. We have a few ideas, but any suggestions would be appreciated. And it seems like they understand in the end, thank goodness. And I'm glad they're going through with their original plans to go and see the world and things. You know, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that many people don't get. So you need to make the most of it, and absolutely plan that out to a T and enjoy it. But what do you think of this story? Do you think OP was right that she's just spending her inheritance on just her and her husband and going to travel the world? Or do you think she should pay off their debts to give them an even better start in life? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy these stories with updates. And if you did, let me know below. If you like an update or two, I will try to keep these continuing as well. The updates are a bit slower than the original posts, so they will come like every other day or maybe every third day or something like that. But I will try my best to do what I can for you. Thank you for being here. As always, it is always truly appreciated. And I will see you, hopefully, if you enjoyed the content, of course. If you've made it this far, I hope you have. In the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.